As mental health professionals, continuous learning is key to serving our communities. And sometimes taking continuing education courses, it is very difficult to find the ones that resonate with us. The Multicultural Counseling Institute, which hosts this podcast, is renewed as an APA CE sponsoring organization. This means continuing education courses at the Multicultural Counseling Institute are eligible for APA CE credit. We've created programs focusing on culturally competent care, especially for people of color, and with instructors who bring both knowledge, experience, and practical wisdom. It's about empowering your practice and uplifting your community, so exceed your continuing education requirements with purpose. As a thank you, listeners, you get 50% off with code FRIENDS50, all caps, FRIENDS50. You can visit www.tmcinstitute.org to explore our live and on-demand psychology CE courses. Now onward to today's episode. Today we are joined by Chelsea Curlett, a licensed professional counselor at Frame of Mind Counseling, LLC, where she's dedicated to helping individuals and families navigate a wide range of mental health challenges, from ADHD and mood disorders to trauma and behavioral concerns. Chelsea's extensive experience spans across children, adolescents, adults, and families. She's also certified in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, or TFCBT, and provides autism diagnostic observation schedule assessments for autism. Chelsea's passion for working with youth and families shines through in her career, which includes experience as a counselor at a residential facility, a mental health therapist at a local agency, and even a school counselor and director of student support. As a Black therapist, Chelsea will be discussing client growth and how we can facilitate that growth, especially amongst marginalized clients. Chelsea, it is a pleasure to have you on our podcast to have such a wonderful conversation today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Why don't you tell me a little bit more about some of the work that you're currently involved with?
So right now, 2025 is kind of an exciting year for me. It's my 10-year business anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's an interesting year. A lot of things have happened. But in my 10 years of having my practice, I originally was part-time and now I'm full-time for the past 3 years doing my practice. So my focus now is on client growth for myself, growth for clients, and what that looks like for them, for me, for my business, all of those things. So right now, doing a lot of training, I'm doing a lot of reaching out to different organizations and just trying to get more involved in the ways that will help support my clients as my business continues to grow and as it gets older.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you've been doing this business for 10 years is phenomenal because, people are always wondering, well, how do I run a practice in a way that is effective and can sustain the, test of time? And so for you to go 10 years on and to focus on growth, oftentimes we also talk about how do we treat clients? How do we treat their depression? But you're flipping that script. You're talking about growth. So let's talk about that mindset. Share with me, where did you even come up with that idea?
So when I'm seeing clients or even just thinking about myself, I'm thinking, yes, I want things to be different. Yes, I want things to be sustainable, but what does that look like? So for me, there has to be an evolution. There has to be a change. And over time, you grow whether or not you want to or you don't want to. So just really honing in on that, what that growth looks like and how you can be a more active participant in your growth. So that's kind of where that came from. And then in addition to it, being in my 10th year of practicing, I've grown, my practice has grown, we get older, you know what I mean? So just kind of taking that into consideration when I'm thinking about, how do I help people and how do I encourage them to kind of see things in a different light, and then reflecting on who they are, where they come from, where they're going. All of that requires a certain level of growth and a certain level of information to have about yourself. And growth can kind of, for me, look like anything. You grow in how you reflect upon your experiences. You grow in your interactions with people. You grow in your relationships. You grow in various ways. So I think growth is very complex and very different for many people.
It's also very dynamic because when we talk about growth and you're really putting that in an intentional way, you're
Right.
thinking about, well, it isn't just me facilitating my client's growth. I too am growing
Right.
and I need to grow to help my clients. And by focusing on growth, you're constantly reminded of that importance, the interaction of the therapist and a client. Because I would imagine if we just say, oh, yeah, I treat depression. Okay, do we ever think about that from a growth orientation or some evolution? No, it isn't something that comes to mind. So I really love that you're putting that as the emphasis. Now, I am wondering about this because, our podcast, People of Color in Psychology, we really want to bring to light the voices of marginalized communities.
Mhm.
So in thinking about growth orientation, in working with marginalized clients, can you share with me some tips or things that people will want to look for?
So, in working with marginalized communities and marginalized people, growth to me looks very different for them. It's always individualized, right? But then there are themes that float across various demographics of people. So, we kind of look at past and then how that past impacts who you are currently, in addition to what are the other messages that you're getting currently, and what are the messages that you've gotten in the past, and how have those messages shaped you. Then the next step would be, how do you grow from those messages? So there has to be a certain level of identification of where you came from, where you are now, and where you want to go. So for me, it's a lot of not necessarily going through every single detail of the past, but what are the things that you felt in the past? What are some of those experiences that you've had? And what were the significant things that have happened to you in your lifetime that have gotten you where you are today? And because you're here and you're present and we're sitting in the room together trying to, get you to the next level, whatever that next level may be for you, all of that stuff is growth. There's growth in being able to look back at where you've come from. There's growth in looking at where you are currently, and then there's growth in your next step. So I like to kind of focus on, in sessions with clients from, marginalized communities or in any communities really, I like to focus on, where were you and where are you trying to go? It is important to look at where you are now, but for some people, I think that's difficult, and I don't know if it's difficult to figure out where you are now based in where you've come from, and then threading that needle to where you're going.
Well, you're talking about messaging,
Right.
right? I'm thinking how the messaging is so important. If social messages are stated or explicitly stated how certain groups and populations should act, behave, and so on, how
Right.
that can impede growth, kind of maybe addressing that issue of threading the needle of challenges of being able to see how my future growth is going to look.
Right. So it's difficult because I tell people multiple things, right? And they seem to be conflicting. So we say, don't focus so much on the future, that can create anxiety. We say, don't look too much in the past because that can create depression. Focus in the present moment. But I do think that there has to be a level of awareness of the messaging, and whether that's familial messaging, whether that's outside messaging from, social media or politics or whatever that messaging is, you being able to really kind of identify what you're taking in from those messages, and then how those messages are impacting your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and how those thoughts, feelings, and actions are helping or impeding your growth. So threading that needle a lot of it is like, what are the themes that you see within yourself? What are the themes in your choices? What are the themes in your emotions? I like to do a lot of like feelings tracking. So there was a situation. How did that make you feel? What feelings did it stir up? What was your perception of what happened? What thoughts did these situations bring up for you?
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks for
good question.
thanks for sharing that. I'm curious if there are other tips or things that most of our listeners, when we're listening to other clinicians on this podcast, we ourselves are also trying to learn something
Right.
and grow ourselves. I was wondering if you have any ideas or messages you like clinicians to consider to help in our own personal growth in working with marginalized populations.
I think that journaling in a free write way, in addition to journaling about your biases, right? Or your own personal messages. Or sometimes, which it sounds odd, like, everyone's scrolling social media or scrolling, whatever their guilty pleasure is, and you're scrolling and you're seeing these memes, right? So one thing that I like to do, which I find helpful for me, is to like screenshot some of these quotes, because quotes are being thrown at you all day, every day. So in screenshotting these quotes, then go back and journal about why you screenshot that quote. Did you screenshot it because it triggered a memory for you or it triggered an emotion for you? Did you screenshot it because it made you think of a client or a friend or a family member or someone that you interact with? And because sometimes it's difficult to dig a little bit deeper in, when you're reflecting and when you're having these conversations, but the messaging that you're constantly taking in, whether it's from social media or wherever, what are the things that are evoking emotion? What are the things that are evoking deeper conversations or deeper thought process? So that's kind of like an interesting way that I like to reflect, because it's not just me thinking, okay, how did I feel in this situation? It takes you to another place, because there are things that you're constantly taking in, or information that you're taking in, that impacts you. And sometimes we're just not aware of or conscious of the things that we're taking in, and things that are stirring up emotion and or just thoughts. Maybe it doesn't evoke a strong emotion, but it does evoke a process of thinking or a pattern of thinking that leads you somewhere where maybe you didn't think you could go or didn't want to go.
Yeah, this is a very novel thing because we tell our clients to journal.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense. We should probably journal ourselves too, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Well,
one of the things that a lot of my clients do that they find peace in are doing voice notes. One of my
interesting.
clients was very, very big on voice notes. So it's like you're able to talk it out, vent it out. You can go back and listen or not. You can send it to your therapist if they allow that. And I find it interesting because this client in particular would send me voice notes, and it would be like deep stuff. And then it would say, I was thinking about it, I needed to get it out, but I knew, I didn't want to cross that boundary of then, trying to contact you all the time or whatever. So it was a very interesting concept. And that was the first time that I had ever experienced that. And it actually was really helpful.
Wow. Yeah, because I mean, I tell my clients, hey, here's a journal. Please use the CBT format. Write
Right.
this down. Because some people, they're not going to have ability to write this down. Well, why not just do a voice note? It's so much
Right.
easier. It makes so much more sense. And the emotion comes out in the voice
Right.
that we can't capture in text.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It was just I was like, I guess, it's a thing. So
Yeah.
it worked out, and it actually works out better, it's in particular for younger clients as well. Like they would rather just talk it out. And it's funny because you can always see the progression in thought, like the growth in the thought. So that, someone may start out sad or angry. And once they're able to talk it through, in particular, like if they've been in therapy for a while, they're able to come back around and, maybe have a different perspective and reflect on it much differently than they would if they were writing it.
So for you, it's also helpful as a clinician and rewarding to see that evolution, that growth within the
Right.
client. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you've been doing this work for a while. Can you share with us any memorable events and circumstances that influenced how you got here?
I had not necessarily a twisty turvy way, but when I graduated high school long ago, I was going in to be a nurse. And then I changed to business, and then I changed my major a million times. So I ended up in a psychology class. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I like it. Yada, yada, yada. Stayed in it, got my degree. I did an internship at a residential treatment facility for girls. I was terrified. I was in the secure unit, everything was locked up. I didn't know what to expect. So throughout that time is when I decided, like, this is where I want to be. Like, this is what I want to do. So it was that initial group of girls at the time. And I still remember maybe half of them. I was, young and free at the time, just making life's choices. But hearing their stories, understanding who they were, understanding the impact that I had just as this young person who I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know really what I was doing. You take classes in college, but once you're in the field, it's a very different experience. So going through that process is when I decided, like, okay, I want to be a therapist. Now, I said, oh, I want to be a school therapist. I want my summers off. I want weekends off, holidays off, all the things. But that was not where I grew the most, was when I was in the school setting. Like, I grew the most being in the clinical setting, working with clients. And I really just found that was where I was the happiest. And of course, I wrestled with that. Like, do I want to be in a clinical setting? What does this look like? How do I, make this a career? But then I don't know, COVID happened and I said, well, I know where I'm the happiest. I know where I am thriving. And there was a level of acceptance that I had to have in that. That was a lot of growth for me.
Yeah, the permission for you to acknowledge this is something that makes me happy. Let's go there.
And I definitely grew into that. And I definitely grew into, the therapist that I am today. Of course, I don't know if every therapist feels this way, but of course, every time you get a new client or every time you're moving from one thing to the next, you're thinking, am I going to be able to help this person? Am I going to be able to help this person grow? And whatever that growth looks like for them, I don't determine what someone's growth is. I allow them to determine that. So it's definitely an interesting place to be. But I got here from changing my major a million times, working in residential, and really accepting that this is where I'm supposed to be. And not only that, but this is where I want to be, accepting that piece of it too.
Yeah. And throughout the multiple changes, of majors as well as this path that you've taken, you were also changed by the clients who were interacting with you.
Right.
As you mentioned, working with a group of girls in the residential treatment facility. So along the way, as a person of color, what were some challenges that you faced and overcame that you will be willing to share?
Probably the biggest challenge that I have faced in my field where I live is being taken seriously. So, I can remember going to a training and being in an elevator with a group of therapists and them continuing to ask me, well, aren't you just an intern? I'm like, no, I'm a therapist. No, you're an intern. No, I'm not.
What?
Yes.
Someone's challenging your professional role, credential? Oh,
Yes.
gosh.
Yes. So that was early on in my career when I did agency work. So that's probably one of the largest challenges I faced thus far, is just being taken seriously and people understanding that just because I am a person of color, just because, other people of color flock to me, doesn't mean that I can't treat everyone, doesn't mean that I'm not well versed and comfortable in the things that I know, in the things that I'm able to treat. I am very honest when I get new clients or when people reach out to me. I say, you know, in my first intake session, hey, if I can't help you, I'm not going to try. Like, I'm going to try, but I'm not going to, you know, keep you here under the guise of I'm going to be able to do all of these things. Like, I'm honest about that. This is a collaboration and I want you to get that help. So I think just really being taken seriously by other clinicians. And I remember when I was first setting up like my Psychology Today page, I was talking to my sister and I was saying to her, like, I don't want to put my picture up. And she's like, why? And I was like, because I don't want people to not come to me because of how I look. And
Oh my gosh.
And she was, listen, you need to put it up. And if they don't choose you because of whatever reason, you don't want them as a client anyway. And I, you know, that was something that I wrestled with for a while, not because I wasn't secure in my abilities, but just because I didn't want those preconceived notions or perceptions to come into play. And honestly, I was happy that I have chosen, you know, I did choose to obviously put my picture up. I did choose to do some of these things that I was really hesitant about based on experiences that I've had, you know, doing agency work and things like that. It was more so, I didn't want my skills and abilities and knowledge to be questioned based on how I look. And that has been an underlying conversation that has happened in situations that I've been in. It's, you know, can I do the work? Am I well versed? Do I know my stuff?
It's also exhausting to keep having to bring that up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now it's not even I don't think about it. Not only do I not think about it, if it is an underlying conversation, let's address it. Let's talk about it. What do you think my issues are? Or what do you think that I'm not able to do based on what you see in front of me? Because obviously we haven't really had a conversation.
I would imagine that having that difficult conversation can be actually therapeutic for the client because they start to recognize, oh, what am I also learning? And so as we're in this topic, you know, it's like, you know, how we look is like based on our external appearance,
Right.
Especially when it comes to, you know, racial development and racial identity. So for you, what does it mean to be a Black therapist?
It's definitely interesting. I thoroughly enjoy it, thoroughly love who I am, what I do. I hope that I exude that in conversations and in time that I spend with other people. To me, it really, so this question is difficult because I've never been asked this question.
Oh,
Never. At the end of the day, I just want to help. I feel like being a Black therapist, being a therapist in general, for me just means I want to help. I want to help people who look like me, people who don't look like me. And I think that the perspective that I bring allows for more open conversations because I am able to, you know, understand different things from different places and all of that. So I don't know. It's really important to me. I like to say that I'm a therapist that is Black. And that's, again, one of those things that I've had to accept as I've gotten older. And that's one of the things that I have had to reflect on throughout my own personal growth as a person and my growth as a therapist.
So with that, Chelsea, how can we support you?
You know, I don't know. So this conversation and me really trying to get more involved and to have a larger voice, whether it's in my community and other places, I think that is probably the biggest support. One of the biggest things that I'm trying to do so that I can get that support, so I know what that support looks like. I think, not that I haven't been supported for a long time, but supported by my peers, you know, like-minded individuals, people who are in the same field as me. It's an interesting place because now where I live, there are a lot of therapists of color who are, you know, they're not new therapists of color, but throughout different avenues, we now seem to have a larger voice. And with a spotlight that is placed on mental wellness and mental health, a lot of us are trying to come together more. But I know that for me, I need various perspectives and to have different conversations from not only the people in my area, but people from different places. So just finding ways to connect, finding ways to have the hard conversations with other therapists of color, whatever those colors are.
Yeah. I guess, just like the word I'm looking for is more collaboration,
Right, right.
right?
And
Collaboration amongst different therapists. Yeah.
and really trying to build a community where it's safe to come in, and have those tough conversations, or to come in and say like, hey, I'm going through the same things you're going through, good, bad, or indifferent, in a similar stage of life as you, and how can we support each other in navigating, just as therapists, how can we support each other in navigating if, different friendships come out of that, or whatever that looks like, how we can come together just as a community and not community in my area, but a community of therapists, a community of professionals to
Yeah.
support one another in all of the changing landscape of the world.
Yes. And the community that we're building goes beyond the physical, location. We can also have the virtual professional community. And we'll have your contact information and your website in our show notes. Is
Yeah.
it all right? So I take it it's all right for folks to reach out and
Absolutely.
ask questions and possibly collaborate.
I would love nothing more.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Chelsea, any final thoughts?
I definitely really appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate you giving a voice to the people who are listening and to the people who may have never listened. So, and to the people who are boots on the ground doing the work. I definitely appreciate that. I've never, in my X number of years of practicing or being a therapist, ever would have thought that I would have been able to be in this position. So I greatly appreciate that for
Yeah,
giving me the opportunity to be a part of something greater than me
you bet.
outside of my practice and the clients that I work with every day. So
Oh yeah, yeah, you bet. I'm just excited that you're able to share these perspectives, your experience and insight with other listeners, many whom are therapists, and to hear about this growth-oriented approach is very unique. That we talk about, growth orientation, growth mindset, but we don't really I would say it's not as intentional and deliberate the way you're putting it. And also to think about how are we growing, there is this constant reflection that you are doing and with yourself, which then also helps the client. So it's going both ways. Again, just constant reminder, hey, this is growth, as opposed to, oh, I'm here to treat trauma. I'm here to treat whatever. Yeah.
And I think, in the work that I do, I really work hard to build relationships and to build rapport. So that's one of the skills that I learned in residential is, you have to have that mutual respect, and that the person that you're talking with has to trust you enough to believe in themselves and to believe in you and your support of them. So I think growth, even in that, like there's growth in everything that we do. So I really try to hone in on that and make that key for a lot of clients, and not see it as, oh, I'm changing. You are changing, you're growing, you're shedding the skin and growing into your next skin. So, but I definitely am very appreciative of this opportunity and being able to have a voice, being able to have a conversation really about what I'm doing. And it helps me really understand, that my perspective is important, my growth is important, my clients are important, and it reinforces that for me. So I definitely appreciate you.
Yeah. Chelsea, thank you so much for your time and just this wonderful conversation today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate talking with you.
A huge thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please share and subscribe to People of Color in Psychology. You can also support us by registering for continuing education courses or making a one-time donation on the Multicultural Counseling Institute's website. Their feedback is important to us, so feel free to send an email a message on LinkedIn, or leave a voice message on our website. Until next time, this is your host, Jack Sun.